Why does something which seemed to have healed surface again and again? How do we heal something forever and not feel any associated emotions? Okay, so there are a couple of things that I want to address here in these questions. There are a couple of misconceptions or myths about healing that's really important for us to address here in this question. The first one is that a lot of times people think that healing is something that happens just once. So you find a wound, you discover that, you have some kind of past experience or trauma or wound that needs to be healed from the past, whether it's for example, maybe you broke up with someone or there was some kind of heartbreak. It doesn't just have to be trauma or things from childhood. It could be things that were recent in your life, like the breakup of a relationship, for example. And a lot of times people think that when they identify a wound, they access it and they heal it, and then it's finished, moving on, and everything is great and dandy. But that's not really how healing works. Okay, so healing works very much in layers. This is why when this person asked this question, she was actually tapping into the energy of it, which is how it keeps surfacing again and again. And a lot of times we get really annoyed with this particularity of healing because, again, our egos want to heal really fast. We want to get things over with and move on. But healing works in layers. So the way that healing really works on an energy level is I access a wound, I heal a significant part of it. Maybe I heal 50% of it. Maybe I heal 40% of it. It's impossible to tell. But each time you access the wound, you're going to heal a specific piece of it or percentage of it. And then you're going to move on with your life. And maybe a week later or a month later or 6 months later, something in your outside environment materializes and it sort of forces you to revisit, or it touches that wound or it pokes that wound again and it comes to the surface again. And sometimes people get really annoyed that this happens, but this is actually the natural process of healing. What ends up happening is each time a layer of that wound comes up to the surface to be healed, what you'll notice is that if you're doing your healing work, if you're accessing those emotions and processing it and just sitting with it and embracing everything, what you'll notice is that each layer of the wound that you access moving forward, it's going to get less emotionally charged, it's going to get less painful to heal, and you're going to be able to heal it faster. So what ends up happening is each layer you go into, it gets easier and easier and easier until pretty soon the wound is gone, indeed. It's going to be gone at some point. I don't know when, you don't know when, and there's no point in trying to just try and keep trying to figure out how many layers you have for the wound to completely disappear. There's no point in that. Just don't keep stock of how many times you've accessed the wound. Let it go. Just keep it out of the mind, and just remember that each time something surfaces of a specific wound, all that means is that the wound is still there and it's not healed 100%. No need to get annoyed. No need to get frustrated. You just say, okay, this is the natural way that wounds heal, and I'm just going to heal this layer that I've accessed right now. I'm going to heal it and I'm going to move on. And then 6 months down the road, if you access another layer, I'm going to heal it and I'm going to move on. And you just keep doing it with this kind of carefree attitude, with this very lighthearted energy, and that'll really help you just heal the wounds. Eventually, you will heal the wound to its core, where it will completely disappear or disintegrate. At least the energy aspect of it will disintegrate. Okay? Now, I want to talk about another misconception that was also in this question, so I want to talk about it before we leave today. And the misconception is that, the other misconception is that when a wound is healed, there's going to be no associated emotions. It almost completely disappears from my life. I'm never going to think about it. I'm never going to feel about it again. And that's a little bit of a misconception too. So you can be completely healed from a wound, but let's say 6 months down the road, you're having a conversation or you're recalling that wound, or you're telling a story to a friend because you're sharing your story. And when you tell the story of something that happened to you, you feel a little bit of associated emotion still with that particular experience in your life. That doesn't mean that the wound isn't healed. Okay, so that's an important aspect. You may always have a little bit of an emotional charge to the wound even after it's healed. It's sometimes, in the majority of times, what happens is as the wound is healing, the emotional charge will decrease to a point where you may not have any associated emotions anymore with that particular wound once it's healed, or you may. It depends on the depth of the trauma. It depends on the significance of the experience. There are a lot of variables here. But the point I wanted to leave you with is that just because there's an associated emotion with that wound doesn't mean it's not healed, okay? So try not to get stuck with that. The point here is, I think the most important aspect of it is, even if there's a little bit of associated emotion, that's fine. It doesn't mean it's not healed. And the most important, I think, answer to this question is that as you're healing your wounds, you're just going to access different layers. At some point, you'll get to the core of the wound and it'll finally be healed. But until then, don't take stock. Don't keep a checklist saying, oh, I accessed that wound again. I haven't done my work properly. That's not true. You can be doing your healing work very, very well and still access a wound in different layers. The best attitude that you can have is, each layer I access of this wound, it's an invitation from the universe to just heal another aspect of it. And then 6 months down the road, there's another invitation from the universe to heal another aspect of this wound until eventually the wound is gone. All right. I hope this helps. See you soon.